একটা ডাঙৰ ডেভেলপমেণ্টে ষ্টেটে 147 contractual assistant professors আৰু librarians খানকে ৰেগুলাৰাইজ পাৰ্মানেণ্ট কৰি দিবলৈ অৰ্ডাৰ এগেইনষ্ট প্ৰটেষ্ট চলি কিনা যাই থকাৰ মাজতে আজি পাৰ্লিয়ামেণ্টাৰী এফেয়াৰ মিনিষ্টাৰ কে কেনিয়াৰ পৰা অৰ্ডাৰ ইটো ৰিভক কেঞ্চেল কৰি দিছে কৈ কিনা এনাউন্স কৰিছে কেনিয়ে ইচ্ছা জনাইছে কি এগ্ৰিভ পাৰ্টিজ খান তাইখানলৈকে প্ৰটেষ্ট খতম কৰি কিনা হাই পাৱাৰ কমিটি HPC ৰিপৰ্ট যোনটো 2 হাফতা আধা 3 হাফতা মাজতে আহিব ইটো ৰখিবলৈ জনাই দিছে কেনিয়ে জনাইছে কি কেবিনেট বি HPC লেগে ৰিপৰ্টটো অহা পিছতেহি ফাইনেল ডিচিশ্যন ল'ব কৈছে কেনিয়ে পৰা চিটিজেনছ অফকে ষ্টেট নৰ্মেলচি আৰু পিছ আনিব নিমিত্তে আৰ্জ কৰিছে গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট NSF আগে পৰা ইছ্যুটো জনাই দিখিনাবি একশ্যন ল'বলৈ ডিলে হোৱা অপৰহদাতে কেনিয়ে জনাইছে কি কনচাৰ্ণ ডিপাৰ্টমেণ্টে লেপছেছ থাকিছে কৈছে আৰু ইছ্যুটো কেতিয়াবি কেবিনেট লগতে পুঞ্চা নাই কয়কিনা ইটো বাঢ়ি জানিবলৈ পাইছে কয়কিনা জনাই দিছে যদি মানুহকুন খান লেপছেছ ইটো নিমিত্তে ৰেছপন্সিবল আছে তাইখান এগেইনষ্ট একশ্যন ল'ব না নাই হোদাতে মিনিষ্টাৰ জনাইছে কি গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট HPC ৰিপৰ্ট বাল পৰা ভেৰিফাই কৰি কিনা একবাৰ সঁচা কি আছে তো জানিবলৈ পোৱা পিছতে ঠিক একশ্যন ল'ব কৈ কিনা ষ্টেট কৰিছে ইছ্যুটো প্ৰায় এতিয়া থকা গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট ওপৰ একো এফেক্ট হ'ব না নাই হোদাতে কেনিয়ে ষ্টেট কৰিছে কি এইটোতো যদি গালতিটো জানি কিনা কৰিছে না নাজানি কিনা কৰিছে এইটো ওপৰহি হ'ব কৈছে কতে তাইবি গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট ট্ৰান্সপেৰেঞ্চিতে বিশ্বাস কৰে কৈ কিনা HPC ৰিপৰ্টটো পাব্লিককে জনাই দিব কৈ কিনা এশ্যোৰেঞ্চ দিছে
As you have been covering in the last few days, we have had some issues in regard to the Department of Higher and Technical Education with the issue of absorbing regularization of the 147 professors and librarians. So, the aggrieved parties, they have taken the matter to the street. I don't have to go back on all those details since we have already covered the entire background and the citizens of this state, I believe, are aware of the details on what transpired and how it has led to this situation today. In the last few days, at the government level too, we have tried to persuade our aggrieved parties and student leaders not to continue with the agitation and not to vitiate the atmosphere because it is something which we can resolve it without going too far. In the first place, it is unfortunate that certain lapses has been committed by the department, the Higher and Technical Education Department, which misled the entire cabinet and the government into a very awkward situation. I must admit that government is embarrassed for having to review its own decision. But today, on one hand, we thank God that there has been no untoward incidents. From day one, our fear has been that accidents could occur in any form of agitations and protests. We cannot completely rule out accidents. So we had much apprehensions. We thank the restraint exercised by the agitating parties also, and the prompt action of our administrative officers on the ground and the district executive forces also, who exercised extreme restraint and could contain the situation to be peaceful thus far. It is a matter which pertains to one of the most challenging areas of our state today, in a sense that we have one of the highest literacy rates in the country. And the irony is that we have the lowest educated unemployed rates in the country. So, with this dynamics behind the situation, it is very much expected that from time to time such issues will crop up. Like any other states in the country, we have our own problems too. But the government and the people must learn to resolve our issues, our problems amicably. So today, after much deliberation at different levels, we have received the interim report, not the complete report, but the interim report of the High Power Committee, which was constituted on the 21st of this month, when the issue first cropped up. And it was on that day that the cabinet felt there was something serious here which needs a relook. So we have constituted a high power committee comprising of high officials, and they have been given initially 8 weeks to delve into the issue and bring out a comprehensive report, basing on which the government could take any steps further. Otherwise, the government could not go beyond keeping the cabinet decision in abeyance. That was the furthest that the government could go, without any substantial materials. But the cabinet took cognizance of the entire situation, and on presumption, purely on presumption, we have acted because we respect the views that have been put forward by the aggrieved parties, that it contains some substance and elements of truth. So instead of turning a blind eye and letting it fall on deaf ears, the government was quick and acted promptly by going back on its own decision and keeping the decision, cabinet decision, on hold by way of keeping it at abeyance. And simultaneously, as I'm telling you, by constituting that committee. So I must say that the government have reacted promptly and were sensitive to the demands of our aggrieved parties and the students' community. With that, we have tried to persuade to call off the agitation and not to go any further. But on subsequent meetings, they have put forward the views that 8 weeks was too long a time. And the demands grew that the High Power Committee should be immediately dissolved also, and that the cabinet must immediately revoke the decision to regularize the 147 candidates. So yesterday, the day before yesterday, the night before last night, in fact, we have deliberated with the 2, 3 parties and tried to put across to them that any further than keeping the order in abeyance, the cabinet requires some substance to move forward. So, in natural justice, even if we have to reverse, we need reasons based on facts, established facts, that something has gone wrong somewhere, basing on which we'll be able to take further steps. So we have tried to communicate this to them. And we are grateful that they could understand and have kept the protest at a low key. Today, the cabinet received the interim report of this high power committee in view of the tensions that is surrounding the entire issue. The HPC had to double their speed, and they could provide us some basis upon which the cabinet could take action. So they have recommended, after thorough deliberation, their initial findings is that this is a fit case for review, taking into consideration all the aspects of the study, which is still in the process. So, government fully understanding that tensions has to be relieved and the issues have to be resolved, and that we do not have different views. They feel that they have some facts with them to prove that this is wrong, and the cabinet also is convinced by the nature of these entire proceedings that some things might have gone wrong. So, basing on this high power committee's interim report, the cabinet has decided to revoke the order regularizing the 147 candidates. That is where we are today. And with this, I hope the aggrieved parties who are on the streets will call off their agitation, and we shall all wait for the final report of the High Power Committee, which is due in a 2.5 weeks' time, at the most, basing on which the final decision will be taken by the cabinet again. Until such time, let us all bear with each other and restore peace and normalcy in our state.
Sir, the issue of this absorption, it seems it has started a few years back, and NSF had already informed the government about it. So why did it take so long for the government to realize that mistake?
Yes. I don't want to go into details again because you have been dwelling on all these intricacies. But the point that I was saying at the beginning is that there were some lapses on the part of the concerned department. That is the point where you're asking now. But it was confined to the concerned department only. It never came up to the government's or the cabinet's level earlier. So something wrong was taking place in one of the directorates, but it was never brought to the notice of the cabinet earlier. So it has escaped the notice of the cabinet until the 21st, until lately.
Sir, since you have found out that there have been some, discrepancies that is going on in the directorate, will the cabinet take any action against the concerned department or the officials or the minister concerned regarding this? Because it has superseded the cabinet decision, the government's order.
That's a very pertinent question. So we are apprehensive that some serious consequences may take place. So the government has to rely on the reports of the High Power Committee. They will be establishing those facts which are still assumptions and presumptions. And after certain facts are established and they submit their reports, government certainly will take further actions.
Sir, considering that the department officials will strictly be working under the directive of the concerned minister, will this affect the government in any way, the present government setup?
I will not go that far as to what might actually take place, but it depends on the nature and the degree of the anomalies committed. Whether it was deliberate, whether it was unintentional, whatever it be, to probe into all those aspects, we will have to rely and wait for the High Power Committee's report.
So the
Sir, what is that,
HPC report, which is due in 3 weeks, will it be made public?
That depends. But we believe in transparency. And if the government is to take any action, we have to let the people know as to why we are resorting to take any actions or have failed to take any actions, both ways.
Sir, will
so
you,
why is that the government, when it had already had a standing order, then you say that the department had misguided the government. So how is that possible that the department misguided the government on this matter?
There are many ways where department can continue without bringing it to the notice of the government, which is not supposed to be. Which is not supposed to be. So, if something is happening contrary to a standing government OM, then actually it should not be resorted to in the first place. But it has escaped the knowledge of the cabinet earlier. And it was detected only after the aggrieved parties raised their voices. So this is something, as I said, quite awkward for the government also. Government should be vigilant, but it has escaped our notice, as I was saying at the beginning. So don't let, we will find ways to make corrections.
So, sir, will the government be committed to coming up with this kind of, what do we say, in other departments? If such practices are taking place in other departments, will the government be committed to finding out, since the department has proved that it can be exploited, the labs?
Because the final approval is given by the cabinet.
We are alert now. We are alert to the issues, and we cannot rule out that there are no such practices in other departments also. So we'll be cautious now, in fact, be vigilant. And if there are such practices anywhere else, the rule is for everybody, not only to a particular or certain directorates.
Sir, will you be giving out anything in black and white to the student organizations because there is a trust deficit of, verbal assurances?
Oh, certainly. Our chief secretary will be issuing a statement, in fact, at the earliest possible. Maybe in a few hours you get it.
the aggrieved parties, there are two. So they are asking for revocation of the government's order. But NSF is asking for September 11, 2024. Both orders, they are related to the same issue. And the city and the other party, they are talking about the December 17, 2024 order. So are we revoking both the orders?
It is to do with the 147, whether they have been regularized in one order or in two, three orders, it does not matter. Okay? That is one. And I'm going a little too far, but it's not my job. But since you're asking me, I will just divulge a little bit. From what we can understand now, because things are yet to be established, facts. From what we can observe now, it appears to me that it appears to us that the 147 may be segregated into two or three categories. There are chances because of that 6th June 2016 decision of the cabinet. You got a copy of that, I think. You are aware of that. So this group falls into two categories or three, I think. So we may be able to find a solution, an amicable solution, if we handle this thing carefully and not just group them up in one category, which will be unjustified, and then see that justice is delivered in a fair manner.
So, do you mean to say that this particular group, 2016, the list, would be sent to the NPSC? Is that the only legitimate way?
That will depend on the cabinet, but rules have to be followed, and most probably will resort to them. The government has to resort to them.
Sir, will you be inviting the aggrieved parties for a meeting today to brief them on?
Well, I have no such instructions, but there's no harm. There's no harm. But I would wait for the black and white papers. Yeah.
So how was the whole experience for the government? Was it a wake up call?
It certainly is, because as you said, could this be happening in other directorates as well? Huh? So this was something which escaped our notice. Now today it is a wake-up call, maybe. It could only be a tip of the iceberg, but we hope it is not so. But if there are anything like this, we will warn all our directors not to in future practice such things.
So we can expect some heads rolling.
Well, I hope not. No heads should roll.
So,
But,
following these steps, is the government contemplating to issue another order directing the departments or the directors not to make any ad hoc appointments henceforth?
The cabinet will certainly take a call on that. I'm certain. We will not henceforth sleep over such issues because, you see, I must say this. A cabinet decision is rarely revoked. Very rare. The highest policy and decision-making body in a government is the cabinet. So it is actually very, very embarrassing for a cabinet to go back on its own decision again. So our high officials, senior officials bear me out, but the cabinet secretary, chief secretary is there during his own tenure and the previous CS also. I don't remember any cabinet decision being revoked or kept in abeyance. It's very, very rare. So this time, when immediately the cabinet took a decision to keep it on hold in abeyance, I think that was a very big step in itself. And now basing on the interim report, just an interim report, not a complete, not a final report, again, to save the situation, to diffuse tension and restore justice, we are again, hopefully, government will not be wrong this time, but revoking our own decision. So this is, I think, something which everyone has to appreciate.
So will the 147 position, will they be requisitioned by the NPSC?
Just now, status quo will be maintained for their case prior to their regularization, which means they will be on track, as they were. And eventually, this again comes back to the HPC, depending on their report, the cabinet will sit and decide their fate further.
Did the interim report mention whatever was given this time, the partial interim report, about any more pending positions in the NPSC, or even just assistant professor posts?
No,
Are there any pending?
They did not go that far.
Okay.
They had confined their research and findings only to this group this time.
Right.
Yeah, and how things have step by step reached so far. Yeah.
Sir, how is the cabinet viewing the
Yes, but I have told you that you see, why would the cabinet want to, or a government want to find itself in such an awkward and embarrassing position? Why? Not deliberately. So we didn't do this knowingly, and we felt everything was right only after the aggrieved parties raised their voice. We realized that something went wrong or is wrong. So immediate and prompt action is being taken. And we have arrived at this decision to revoke. Otherwise, if we feel that things are all right, no matter how many people may raise their voice, go on protest, we will not turn back.